Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Zoe and I make motherhood and lifestyle videos. Today's video I'm going to be talking to you guys about child spacing, the benefits to it, why you would do it, why we chose to do what we did, and sort of like the pros and cons of different age gaps. So I'm currently pregnant. If you didn't know and you can't see, I'm currently pregnant, obviously. I am 17 weeks pregnant and I'm definitely showing so much earlier than I did with my first. I feel like I didn't have this sort of belly until over 20 weeks pregnant with my first. So it's crazy how fast the uterus just grows second or third time around. So yeah, currently pregnant. I don't know what it's like to have two children yet. But I did do a lot of research on age gaps and I'd love to share with you guys why we chose a particular age gap that we did and the research around it and health benefits and whatnot. So we always wanted to have just two kids. I don't want to say we're definitely done because I don't know what we're going to think in a few years' time if we change our mind. But for now, my husband and I are both very happy with this being our last. So yeah, we looked into like different age gaps. We spoke to other families. I researched different health benefits and whatnot, pros and cons, and I also watch videos like this one. You can watch other YouTube videos like this. There's a few others that have been created. And yeah, I sort of looked at what's going to work for us and our family dynamic, and I always thought the 3 to 4 year age gap would suit us very well. Now this baby, so I'm 17 weeks, my current toddler, my only toddler, he is 2 years and 10 months currently, and when this one comes he'll be 3 years and 3 months, which is perfectly in the age gap that we wanted, and we're so very blessed that it worked that way, that we didn't accidentally fall pregnant sooner than we wanted to, or we didn't have any issues. It didn't take us too long, so very, very thankful and blessed. Yeah, so 3 to 4 year age gap. There's multiple reasons why we chose that. The first being that we only wanted 2 kids. So, if you want to have 6, 7, 8 kids, then you might want to have shorter age gaps because you don't have so much time to have your children in. Our age as well. So our first child we had in our mid-20s. Obviously fertility health is still nice and high, so we don't have to worry so much about that. If we were older, in our mid-30s say, or in our 40s, then that might be, we very well could have chosen a different age gap with fertility health in mind, but we didn't have to think about that. And then I am working as well. I'm a working mum. I run a business. I run an accounting firm. So yeah, I knew if I had kids back to back, it just wouldn't work very well. I couldn't take that much time, out of the business, or if I did have children and have to put them in full-time daycare sooner than I wanted to, I would have very much not liked that, because yeah, I just would have personally felt upset with that if that was our situation. And then the health benefits, of course, which I will go into in this video, of the health benefits of child spacing. So I looked into all the research and just there's lots of different health benefits really. Yeah, there's healthier labor and quicker labor and whatnot, and less intervention, less chance of C-section, or if you want to do a VBAC, the doctors usually will recommend that you child space. And then it's just generally a lot healthier for mother and for the baby, for your first and second actually, because yeah, with your first, if you're still breastfeeding for example and you fall pregnant really early, your first might not particularly like the flavor of the milk. That can change and they might wean sooner than you want. There's all sorts of reasons really. And then I'm also very much an attachment parent. That's what I'm into and the type of parent that I am. So I'm very into, co-sleeping, extended breastfeeding, all that sort of stuff. And if you want to do that with 2 kids very close together, it would take a lot. I think it would take a big toll on your body. You'd have to have a lot of patience for that. I'm sure there's women out there who do it and probably are amazing at it, but yeah, I definitely wanted to make it a bit easier for me, a bit easier for the children and for my husband. So they are our reasons. Okay, so some families will choose to have children really close together for a number of reasons. One might be that, you know, the mum was formerly working and then she took maternity leave, and, you know, it might make sense financially for them to have all their children at once, take all the maternity leave at once, and then go back, rather than, you know, taking the maternity leave for the first child, having a gap, putting and going back to work, and in that time putting that first child in daycare, and then having another one. And it's like, do you, I don't know, do you keep the child in daycare or do you pull them out since you're not working now? And then, you know, going back and forward and having all these like maternity leave and then working and maternity leave and working. Yeah, that, if I, you know, if I was working for someone else, if I wasn't working for myself, I'd definitely be considering that. So some women just choose to have all their children all at once, as close together as they personally can, just to avoid all that. And then they just take one big maternity leave gap, raise their children, and then when they're ready to go back to work, they go back to work. Some will also do that because they find getting through the baby phase and everything is easier all together. They're sort of still already in that that routine, that rhythm, you know, dealing with waking up through the night and nappies and potty training and all that, rather than doing all that, having a gap and a break, and then sort of forgetting what it's like. That's definitely one thing that I'm sort of worried about, is how I'm going to cope with waking up again and, you know, changing like 10 nappies a day, all that stuff that you deal with a newborn. Of course, I'll definitely manage at some point. I'll have to. But yeah, definitely if you're already in that routine, I would think that it would be easy just to keep going, even with adding another child in. Some will do it because of age. So as I said, a reason for us having that age gap is because, you know, we were pretty young when we started having children. But if you were in your 40s, say, and you would found the love of your life then, a bit later in life, and got married then, and then started having children, you know, your fertility health is going to be much lower, and that's something that you might worry about. So you might choose to have children really close together, so that you know that you can at least have those children, rather than having one and then waiting so many years and then realizing that maybe you run out of eggs, or, you know, whatever the situation is. Yeah, so look, there's lots of different reasons. There's more than that, but that's just a few. And then the reason why you would child space. Well, there's lots of different age gaps that you can have. Some people try for the 18 months, some do the 2-year, some do 3, some do 5-year. You know, there's all sorts of reasons. But when I refer to child spacing, I'm going to be referring to the 3 to 5-year age gap. So I'm going to talk about the pros and cons to the sort of longer child spacing now. So I feel like I'm already out of breath and puffing and puffing through this video, which I usually don't do, because before now, when filming videos, I hadn't been pregnant. But when you're pregnant, you need more oxygen because you're supplying more blood through your body, which takes oxygen, and everything's pressing on your lungs and everything. So sorry if I'm huffing and puffing and you're like hearing that and you're wondering what's going on. I know I'm just sitting here. I feel like I'm running a marathon, which they say actually is what it's like to be pregnant. So anyway, I do apologize. So back to the video. The pros to the 3 to 5-year age gap. So for child spacing, that's what I'm going to refer to when I mean child spacing. One is that you can save on multiple baby items. So instead of having to buy, you know, 2 cots and another seat for the pram, or if you only had a single pram, maybe you have to upgrade to a double stroller, to high chairs, you know, all that sort of stuff, lots of nappies with different sizes and whatnot. You can avoid all that, of course, if your child's a little bit older and they've already grown out of those things. So your child, like for example, my son, he's in his cot we've changed it to a toddler bed, but when he turns 3, we're gonna move him to like a big boy room, and we'll put him in just a normal single bed. So he'll definitely be old enough for that, and that will be fine. And we can turn his room back into like a baby nursery, and we'll turn the toddler bed back into a cot. So that's fine. He doesn't use his high chair anymore. That's in storage. He doesn't use his pram anymore unless he's sick maybe and he doesn't want to walk, but we never get it out. So we don't have to get a second seat or anything like that. Yeah, he's not in nappies anymore, so we don't have to worry about, you know, buying 2 lots of nappies at the same time, which can be very expensive. Yeah, so that is great. I'm glad I don't have to, you know, eventually I probably will sell those things, but it just means I don't have to go through and buy a whole nother lot, and all the storage as well in the space. So that's excellent. My next positive reason for child spacing is that everything's a lot easier. I can imagine, you're looking back at Nate's ages, you know, he's almost 3 now, looking back when he was like 2 or even 18 months or 12 months, you can do a 12-month age gap if you feel pregnant, you're very soon after having your first. Yeah, just with how he was and how clingy he is, and of course, you know, as I said, I'm attachment theory based with my parenting, so that probably increased his clinginess because he was used to all that. Yeah, just looking back, it just would have been very difficult doing that with 2. You know, he's only just recently weaned off of breastfeeding. Before now, he was breastfeeding a lot. And, you know, yeah, it's just, I feel like even in a few months, he'll be very different. You know, they just grow up so quickly. So yeah, just, you know, already looking back like a few months ago, and now he's just doing so many more different things, and he's like more independent, and he can say a lot more, you know, he can express himself, he's very talkative, he can do a lot more for himself, and yeah, if you have that sort of age gap, it's more likely that your first will be, you know, potty trained and in undies, and you don't have to worry about going through that process, because I can imagine, yeah, I couldn't even imagine toilet training a toddler and then also having a newborn or a baby to deal with. That would be a lot. Like, I know lots of women out there do that, but it would just be hard. I'm just glad I've avoided that. Yeah, so there's, yeah, and then also Nate's in kindy 3 days a week. When he was younger, we slowly sort of increased that. So yeah, if we had a shorter child gap, then I probably would have ended up putting him in kindy more than what I wanted to at a younger age. So yeah, or maybe I wouldn't have, who knows, but I'm glad that he is in kindy 3 days a week, because it means that those days, you know, I can just be dealing with the baby when the baby comes, instead of like a baby and a toddler, which would be harder. Yeah, and then just in general, you know, you're not dealing with like, you know, 2-year-old tantruming because they're still learning to talk and all that sort of stuff. Over 3, they're usually talking and walking well and using the toilet well, eating well, all those things. And I already feel like Nate tantrums a lot less than he did, say, a year ago. He still has those emotional days, of course, all toddlers do, but it's definitely a lot better, and he can deal with his emotions a bit better and talk about it. I think he can communicate a lot more. That definitely helps. Now, there's a very popular con out there for child spacing, and it could very well be super important to you. And you hear it a lot, and it's, you know, I want kids close together because then they'll be really close. You know, they're more likely to be friends and more likely to play with each other and all that, because they're closer together in development and everything, so they're more likely to be doing the same activities and whatnot, which is fair. You know, if you have a 1-year age gap, you'd be doing a lot of the same stuff with both of those children. You know, especially as they grow up, and you know, when the newborn is eventually maybe 1, and then your second child is 2, a 1 and 2-year-old are pretty similar. There's definitely differences, but yeah, you'd still be taking them both to like a play group and, you know, doing things together, taking them both to the park and whatnot. And a 2-year-old would only be doing like a few more things than the 1-year-old could do developmentally. But generally they would be still probably playing together on the ground and all that sort of stuff. So if you do want your children to be yeah, really involved with each other and able to play with each other a lot, then definitely a short age gap would work for you. Compared to, you know, if you have an older child who's in kindergarten or prep or something, and so they're gone most days of the week, and then you have a baby at home or baby young toddler eventually as they grow up, they probably they won't see a lot of each other. You know, they'll be doing very different things. You might be taking your second child to like a playgroup with other young babies and toddlers, and yeah, your first could be at school. So very, very different routines. And yeah, I guess I feel like that also depends a lot on how the individual grew up and what sort of sibling age gap they had in their family and how they experienced it, if that was a good experience or not. I do often hear that, you know, someone might have been close with their siblings and they were only like a year or two apart, and then they want that for their own children, which sounds absolutely beautiful. But yeah, for us, you know, that would definitely be nice, having them, you know, close together, close knit and whatnot. But the other pros for us outweigh that con. And I feel like a 3-year age gap is fine. All right, now to the really big important part of the video is the health benefits and cons and whatnot to child spacing or not child spacing. I feel like this is probably going to be like the biggest segment of the video, and I feel like this might be the most triggering to those who may have had health issues or whatnot due to child spacing. If this is triggering to you for your emotional or mental health, please feel free to skip this part or just stop the video now. I definitely do not want to offend. I don't want to upset anyone at all. And I'm just speaking on my experience as well as research I've done on this topic. So, I feel like I'm huffing and puffing again. So for us, yeah, there's a big health benefit to child spacing because I had an emergency Caesar with Nate. So he was spine to spine. His spine was against my spine, which isn't ideal. Basically, they should be turned the other way. You know, his head was down, which is great. You don't want a breech baby. But yeah, he just wasn't turned the right way, which makes it a lot harder. You can still have a natural labor doing that, but it just requires like really hard pushing, usually a lot longer pushing, and a lot of time like forceps or vacuum or something to help get them out, because they do often get stuck in that position or they end up with this in a Caesar. Nate was 9 pounds 7 as well, so or 4.4 kilos. Yeah, which is very big. I think the average is about 7.5 pounds. So yeah, for, you know, 9 pounds 7, a lot bigger than the average, and whether he just didn't have like the room to turn. A lot of babies will turn during labor, and I was very active. I was walking around a ton and I didn't do an epi or anything like that. I wanted to do like really natural labor. I really didn't think I'd end up in a C-section because I'm young as well, healthier. I didn't have any risk factors. But that's just what ended up having to happen. He was stuck. I pushed for so long and he just was not coming out. And yeah, did an emergency Caesar. He came right out, of course, with that. And yeah, all was good after that. But of course, I'm now left with a scar. The doctors actually told me that I should wait 18 months before falling pregnant again after having Nate. So that would be, what's that, like a 2-year, 3-month age gap, something like that. So, and that's actually what is recommended. If you didn't know, that's what's recommended in the Western world by doctors for all pregnancies. Just like the current research, I guess, in the Western world, they can see that, yeah, the benefits to the mother and the baby are much better if, and certain risks are reduced a lot if you have 18 months between pregnancies. So it's over 2-year age gap. So, but if you're doing a VBAC, they definitely, if you want to do a VBAC, so it's vaginal birth after cesarean, they definitely want you to wait 18 months in between pregnancies. Some hospitals won't allow you to do a VBAC if you haven't waited long enough, basically. Or you could try, and then you might end up having like a rupture, like your uterus is ruptured where the scar is, which is very, very dangerous, very scary. Of course, there are women out there who do a shorter age gap than that, and they've had a C-section and they might do a VBAC and it was successful, which is great. But yeah, it's just the risks are definitely increased if you do a short age gap. So for us, we knew definitely at least an 18-month age gap between pregnancies was going to work for us. It was going to be a lot better, especially if I'm wanting to go for a VBAC. So we'll see how that goes. I'm a good candidate because of the child spacing and other reasons. So yeah, hopefully that all works out well, but we'll see. We'll see how my pregnancy progresses. So that's definitely something to consider, is how your first labor went, and you know, if you had any complications and whatnot there, then yeah, child spacing might be beneficial for your health and for your next baby's health. So I just spoke about the health benefits in the Western world, but I've also done a lot of research from Dr. Weston A Price. If you don't know him, he's a very famous dentist, and he basically traveled the world and studied a lot of different cultures and their health, and there's lots of things that like he recommends for great health just by judging other parts of the world and how they live, and sort of taking out these great things that each culture does to sort of say, this is how we should eat, this is how we should live and whatnot to have optimal health. Yeah, so I'm sure you've probably heard of him. If you haven't, you can definitely research him. I think his website is www.westonaprice.org. It's the Weston A Price Foundation. So he's passed away. he was around a long time ago. But yeah, there's a foundation in his name, and just to sort of carry on his research and his studies and everything like that. So you've probably more heard about his the Weston A Price diet. So he's very into the traditional diet, where it's like big on meat and you know, no processed foods and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I won't go into any of that. But it's very interesting if you're into that sort of stuff. So I do follow him and his research and everything. I find it fascinating. And until recently, I didn't realize that he actually had an opinion on child spacing, and he did research on this as well and studied different cultures. So you can look this up as well on his website. There's a few links on about this if you want to particularly research it as well. But I'll sort of give you guys the summary of what I read. So yeah, in his experience, in his research, he went around different cultures and sort of saw families and different dynamics and different age gaps and how people live and whatnot, and was trying to figure out, you know, who are the healthiest people, what are they doing, what can we do to be like them, and yeah, he found, you know, child spacing actually makes quite a difference. So he went to different like tribal cultures, ones that aren't living in the Western world, and you know, often they don't have access to good quality healthcare or anything like that. Very different to how we live. And he was quite amazed at how healthy they were, and you know, just looking at like their healthcare and what access they had and whatnot. And he found that a lot of these cultures did a 3 to 5 year age gap, and that was actually what was recommended by, you know, the elders. They passed that sort of knowledge down to their children and to their children and whatnot, and that's what they would recommend. And just due to health, most of it was just due to health reasons. And it's interesting that in these cultures, if you had accidentally or whatever fallen pregnant sooner than that 3 to 5 year age gap, and you had a short, maybe you had like a 1 year or 2 year age gap or something, it was actually seen as like quite shameful to the family. It was like a frowned upon thing, you know, it was like very like not a thing that you would do. Yeah, which is terrible, but I can see why they do that, because they don't have access to the healthcare. They don't have prenatal vitamins. They don't have formula to feed their babies if they can't breastfeed, or if it's getting too hard on their body. yeah, they have to rely on you know, nature, I guess. And yeah, so it's very interesting that that's how they see it. Whereas over here, in the Western world, where we're more looking at having kids closer together, and yeah, as soon as your child's one, everyone's asking when are you going to have the next one and whatnot. And pregnancy is definitely a beautiful thing, no matter what age gap you have. So yeah, I found that very interesting. And then reading more into it and the actual health benefits of what he found. So he found, he actually did look at families who weren't in those cultures and had multiple children very close together, like 12 to 18 months, even 24 months sort of age gap between pregnancies, had multiple pregnancies as well. So usually if you have two very close together, it really probably wouldn't make too much difference. But once you're having multiple after that, then each child actually has, it shows, and he actually took photos of it. You can look this up, it's very interesting if you want to look it up. Different abnormalities in their face, in their facial structure, their bone, their jaw lines actually were narrower with each child. Yeah, just different things there. And then their teeth as well. Their teeth were very crowded and would overlap and whatnot. Whereas the children who had the longer spacing, their teeth were more straight. Sorry, my video just strangely cut out there. So yeah, what I was saying, he researched the children who were really close together, and he found that their teeth were totally different compared to the children who had the child spacing. And yeah, in these in these tribal cultures that had the 3 to 5 year age gap, he found that their health was actually very, very good. Obviously over there as well, they were eating, natural foods and no processed foods and whatnot, so that was beneficial. Plus the children were more, I think they didn't really have a choice but to breastfeed because they didn't really have formula bottles. And that was more beneficial to the child as well. So yeah, and he spoke to, the tribes and why they did what they did, and he found it pretty much all indigenous tribes around the world did this. And this was just common knowledge passed down by the elders of the tribes. And basically, yeah, they said they just found that the labor's better, breastfeeding's better, the child's health is better, the mother's health is better. If she's having children really close together, it might not give enough time for her body to bring back all the nutrients that were depleted in pregnancy and growing a child. It takes a lot in breastfeeding as well. It takes a big toll on your body. So yeah, it gave her enough time to build up her nutrient stores again, ready to grow another healthy child. So if her nutrient stores were all depleted, trying to grow another child just as healthy was going to be very hard for her body. Especially, in these indigenous cultures, they didn't have access to prenatal vitamins. They couldn't just top it up. So, and then they found that it was just easier as well. They carry their children everywhere. So if you're carrying 2 very young children, it's a lot harder for the mother compared to an older child and then your next baby. As well as breastfeeding, they would allow the child to naturally wean whenever the child was sort of ready. And if you were having another one, the child might be forced to wean earlier than when they were ready to. So yeah, so I find that very, very interesting, and his research is very, very fascinating if you want to look it up. So that's Dr. Weston A Price. So I hope this video has helped you, whether you're right now deciding what you want to do, if you want to have another child, and what sort of age gap you want. I definitely recommend talking to other families around you, seeing their experience, and looking at the pros and cons definitely for you. There's no perfect age gap, but there's a perfect age gap for you. Maybe not perfect, but a good age gap for you. And it's going to be very different to a friend of yours or to me, so you just have to see what's going to work for you. And if you have any health you know, if there's any complications with your health or anything, definitely something to consider when looking at what sort of child gap you want, if you want to do child spacing or not. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it really informative. Please make sure you hit the big like if you did enjoy the video, and make sure you hit subscribe, especially if you want to see how my life goes with 2 children. That won't be for another 23 weeks if this next one comes on time, unlike my first. So yeah, if you want to see what it is like and what, you know, how it ends up going with my plan of child spacing, if the 3-year age gap was, you know, ideal for me or not, I won't really know for sure until I have this next one. So make sure you hit subscribe, and you can follow all the future videos I put out. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.